There's something very weird going on in China right now. And I'm using weird in the technical sense. China just set a record for coal imports from Australia. Australia sold more coal to China than ever before. And there's good reason to believe that the Chinese economy is in serious trouble. And if you're an Australian and you're looking ahead, you would take that as a warning sign. Australia and China are joined at the hip. I know they have a spat going on, a trade spat, and I applaud Australia's bravery and forthrightness in calling for getting to the bottom of the where the virus came from. My own view is I think there's plenty of evidence that came from the Wuhan lab, but Australia hasn't concluded that. They've said we ought to have a thorough, independent investigation. I think that's right. So they've been sort of smacked down by China, and Australia has stood up very well. And look, there's no denying the strength of the Australian economy. You got a property boom, your stock market is up. To the point that the Reserve Bank of Australia will see fit to taper fairly soon. I think they've extended the start date for the taper, but they still say they're committed to that. Unemployment's going down, so there are a lot of good metrics coming out of Australia. And for that matter, even though China has declared a kind of trade war on Australian wine, we're getting very good prices on Australian wine here in the U.S. So it's great wine. I think you got to sell it to somebody. But China just set a record for coal imports from Australia. Australia sold more coal to China than ever before, and because China needs it, and Australia is a great source. So it hasn't really hammered the Australian economy, but there's good reason to believe that the Chinese economy is in serious trouble. And if you're an Australian and you're looking ahead, you would take that as a warning sign. And just to put a finer point on that, what's going on inside China, and China's always opaque. I mean, Chinese culture is different from Western culture, and so you need to know a lot of Chinese history and religion and philosophy and the mandate of heaven. There's a lot to know about China just to even begin to understand it. And then communists are opaque because they're communists. So you put a communist party on a Chinese society, it's a little bit hard to understand. But some people have some insights, and I believe Kevin Rudd is a former prime minister. Am I correct about that? He seems to be the leading advocate for better relations with China. I'll put it that way. But he made some very interesting comments in an interview yesterday, your time, and looking at what Xi Jinping is doing right now. And some of this stuff gets big headlines. I'll come back to Evergrande in a second, but some of it gets big headlines. They just hammered Didi. Didi was the Uber of China, the ride-hailing company. They did a very successful IPO on the New York Stock Exchange, but they didn't get certain permissions, and the Chinese security agencies, not securities in the sense of stocks and bonds, but internal security, the spies, in other words, they had serious concerns, national security concerns about the information you could get on the Didi app about locations and whereabouts, etc. That was never resolved before the IPO. They went straight for it. So they've been slapped down. They've been their applications have been amended. They've been threatened with the possibility that they may be forced to delist from the New York Stock Exchange and maybe relist or not on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. But not just Didi, Alibaba. Where's Jack Ma? I call him Jack in the Box. I mean, I feel sorry for him. He's obviously under some kind of house arrest. He's hidden. So we haven't seen or heard much of Jack Ma, or almost nothing. Alibaba was slapped down when they wanted to do an IPO of their financial company. I believe it was Ant was the name of the company. Pony Ma is a guy who runs Tencent. They're under scrutiny, but this is across the board. So, and this is completely alien to Western investors. Like, wait a second, regulation. Yeah, there's a place for regulation. You can't break the law. You can't be out of control. Maybe some antitrust. That's all normal. But you don't go out as a party with an ideology and systematically destroy wealth. That is alien to the Western way of thinking about it. But here you have to put on your Marxist, virtual reality glasses, you have to think of it as a 21st century neo-Marxist and say, what do they care about? When you destroy wealth in Chinese stocks, whose wealth is it? Well, it's either the oligarchs or Western investors, because BlackRock is busy stuffing all these Chinese companies into mutual funds and index funds and selling them to retail investors by the hundreds of billions of dollars. Or people are buying Walt Disney, which is, a wholly subsidiary of the Communist Party of China. So the point is, the wealth belongs to either Chinese oligarchs or Western investors. Now, does the Communist Party of China care about oligarchs? No, they want to squash them. They're worried about them. If you Jack Ma's problem was it was more popular than Xi Jinping, and they become rival power centers. So they don't care if they destroy that wealth. Do you think they care about Western investors? No, they would love to destroy the wealth, because who's getting hurt? Your political rivals. What's being strengthened? Communist Party of China. So whereas there's an alignment of interest between government and Wall Street in the United States, or same thing in Australia, there's a completely adversarial relationship between the Communist Party of China and both Wall Street and the oligarchs. So are they destroying wealth? Yeah, and they don't care, because they're hurting their enemies as far as they're concerned, and they're strengthening the party. So plenty of indication that China is slowing down. Now let's turn to Evergrande. So Evergrande is the largest property lending, property development company in China. And it's got its tentacles everywhere, all kinds of subsidiaries and affiliates and other interests, et cetera. It's a huge company. It would be as if you combined, in our Fannie Mae, or the government mortgage agencies in the United States, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac combined with maybe Amazon. That would be what Evergrande is. A huge company. It's my view, insolvent. It's heading for bankruptcy. People kind of know that. You're like, yeah, big deal, Jim. Everyone can see that one coming. The bonds recently were trading at 40 cents, and like, what are they thinking? And of course, they went down to now around 20 cents or 10 cents. Maybe there's a little salvage value there once you wipe out equity. That much is known, okay? And it's kind of priced in, not completely, but priced in. And the Chinese government has the resources to take over this company, and they'll decide who wins and loses. Do you want to whack the stockholders? Do you want to bail out the bondholders? Those will all be political / economic decisions, and the government has the resources to do that. And a lot of people are underplaying what's really going on there. But here's where most people don't see the problem. There's something very weird going on in China right now, and I'm using weird in the technical sense. But Kevin Rudd, I've heard him earlier, who may not share many political views, but I'll give him credit for having pretty good insights into China. He said something along the lines I just said, which is that there's a real debate going on. But he came down on the side that it was going to be party first, capitalism second, that they were in fact going to crush a lot of these values. So if I were an investor, I would just get out of China stocks while there's still time. China just set a record for coal imports from Australia. Australia sold more coal to China than ever before. And there's something very weird going on in China right now. And I'm using weird in the technical sense. There's good reason to believe that the Chinese economy is in serious trouble. And if you're an Australian and you're looking ahead, you would take that as a warning sign.